comes just minutes before he sat down with Chinese President Xi Jinping, who is in the midst of one of the fastest buildups of a nuclear arsenal on Earth. And just days after, Vladimir Putin said that Russia had successfully tested a nuclear-capable cruise missile. Russia saying that test was by no means a nuclear test. Joining us right now, CNN political and global affairs commentator Sabrina Singh for much more on this. Sabrina, you say that what President Trump has now announced and directed the Defense Department to do is not peace through strength. Explain.
Yeah, this is exactly the opposite of the president's policy of his so-called peace through strength. You know, every year the laboratories of the nuclear weapons labs in the United States send a letter to the Department of Defense, Energy, and the Nuclear Weapons Council certifying that our nuclear weapons are safe and secure and a deterrent, that they do not need to be tested. Think of it as these labs test every single part of our nuclear arsenal, similar to how you would test a car, except they never turn on the engine of the car. So if we turn on the engine of the car, you are essentially giving carte blanche to other nations around the world, like Russia and China, to start testing their nuclear weapons, which in theory could lead to a nuclear arms race, or an arms race, and that's not something that we want. And frankly, that flies in the face of the president's policy agenda of peace through strength.
Russia's response, as I just read it from a spokesperson, was that Russia's going to act accordingly if any country breaks the moratorium on nuclear testing. What do you think they're suggesting if the U.S. would restart testing?
What I think they're suggesting is that they would restart testing. I mean, they also see the president's words as something to be taken seriously. The president outlining that the United States could begin nuclear testing, something that we haven't done since 1992. And by the way, the U.S., while it didn't ratify in Congress, is a signer to a treaty ban on nuclear testing that has ensured strength and security and peace throughout the world against nuclear testing. And so I think what Russia is saying here is that if the United States is going to start doing this, we're going to start doing it too. And that is exactly what we don't want to see. If the president's agenda is peace through strength and ending all of these wars around the world, this type of rhetoric is not helpful.
And Sabrina, take it just a step further beyond that. If President Trump goes ahead with nuclear tests like this, look beyond even Russia, what would that trigger?
Well, I mean, think about where you would even do this testing. I don't think anyone is that would be, think about the lives that would be impacted there as well. In terms of what that would mean, you'd have to get, this is also something that the Department of Energy would be significantly involved in and leading on the testing. I mean, I know he said and directed the Department of War, but energy has a huge stake in that. End of the day, we are party to this 1996 treaty ban on testing. And so I think Congress does play a role here. I hope people are waking up today, members of the House and Senate, and asking the White House for clarification and answers. I think what we also need to see is clarification from the president, because if Russia is going to start testing, and if China did want to start testing their nuclear arsenal, you are going to have this arms race that is going to make people feel very unsafe, very insecure. I mean, this is not the Netflix movie that was just released. This is actually the real world that we live in. And I think people want to feel that they are secure here in the United States. And the president's words really, I think, put people at unease at that.
Yeah. Sabrina, it's good to see you. Thank you so much. John.
All right, new this morning, the Justice Department suspending 2 prosecutors after they accurately described January 6th as a, quote, mob of rioters. The source tells CNN the prosecutors were notified of their suspension hours after they submitted a sentencing request for Taylor Taranto. The president pardoned Taranto for charges related to his participation in January 6th, but the man still faces gun charges stemming from his arrest in 2023 when he was detained near President Obama's home in Washington, D.C. With us now, CNN political commentator, former Trump White House communications director, Melissa Farrah Griffin, and Christine Quinn, the executive committee chair of the New York State Democratic Committee. I remember on January 6th when people were saying this will never be memory hold, this event. It seems like the Justice Department is saying, hold my beer on that.
Yes, it's certainly been memory hold and whitewashed by many elected Republicans. And what's remarkable, there was a CBS poll earlier this year that said the percentage of Republicans who went from strongly disagreeing and opposing the events of January 6th went from 50% down to 31%, nearly a 20-point drop in just a matter of 4 years. And I think that's what happens when you have the most prominent elected officials in the country saying this wasn't a big deal. But what stood out to me is mob of rioters is actually kind of the most toned-down language you could use to describe the events of that day. That's not a controversial thing. That's not saying insurrectionist, which goes a step further. So it just goes to show how much they really want to clean up anyone within the DOJ who sees the events of January 6th for what they were.
I mean, firing lawyers for telling the truth. It defies any logic at all. I mean, that's what you want from lawyers, is to put out the facts. And as you said, that's a minimal description. What do they want lawyers to do? To lie and create facts and create stories that the president is going to like? It's terrible. The Department of Justice has little to do with justice anymore.
Just a few minutes ago, ABC News and the Washington Post released a new poll on the destruction of the East Wing in the White House. And the results were just pretty glaring, right? 56% opposed, and the way you should read this is oppose and support, like alternate here. 56% opposed it being knocked down, just 28 supported. And then the strongly opposed, 45% say they strongly oppose the East Wing getting knocked down. People seem to care a little bit about this.
That is clear as day. And you know, that image of the bulldozer and the East Wing being gone, you can't get it out of your mind. It's as the decided he was going to rip apart history and take apart places where amazing and important things happened. And it's all about his arrogance, all about wanting some big grand ballroom that resembles his hotels. It is so at its core wrong and really un-American, and I'm glad to see that the American people see it so clearly.
So things move fast in politics, and we're a year away from the midterm elections. But what are the chances we see these images plastered all over Democratic ads?
It's going to be leading in the midterms. Listen, I was skeptical that this would stick because nothing really sticks in the era of Trump. But I think it was two things. It was the optics. It was that Donald Trump said that the East Wing would not be touched, and then we see it being bulldozed in a matter of days. But then the timing. We're in a government shutdown right now. You've got federal workers being laid off. You've got unemployment that's too high. You've got inflation ticking up to the point where the Fed just gave us another rate cut. It is a moment that feels like let them eat cake. He's getting a ballroom, and Americans are struggling to make ends meet ahead of the holidays. The timing couldn't have been worse. I actually think you probably could have gotten the public somewhat on board with this, if just not for the timing and the way in which it was done.
So the timing, the shutdown, which still lingers on, there may be the first kernels of some faint optimism that some senators are talking to each other. But what we still don't see, Alyssa, is serious White House involvement. Why and when might we?
It's fascinating because I was working for Pence in the White House during the longest shutdown in history, which this one's close to becoming in 2018. And there was this sense of urgency in the West Wing. We have to cut a deal. We've got to be talking to Republicans in Congress. We've got to talk to Democrats. You don't get a sense of urgency. The president's been abroad twice now. The vice president's been abroad. They are business as usual. I think these SNAP benefits running out does create some sort of a fire under everyone in D.C. You just owe it to the public, again, ahead of the holidays, people who are relying on this to meet their basic food needs. I think that's going to make the White House feel like they have to get involved to some degree, but I still think this will be congressional.
And Christine, this is your wheelhouse, you know, with the SNAP benefits here in New York City and whatnot. So many people are affected. Alyssa saying maybe we'll make the White House feel that they have to get involved. But for Democrats, I mean, this is hurting a lot of people that they represent.
You know, I run a home service organization, and we house 7,000 people a night, families with children, 3,600 children. The average age of someone in a shelter in New York City is 5 years old. 98% of our clients are on SNAP. I've spent the past days on the phone trying to raise $400,000 this week, because that's how much money we need to make sure our clients get what they would have gotten in SNAP and to buy food for their children. This is a disgrace, and the real crime of it is that the Department of Agriculture has the money to keep these benefits going. This isn't a bank account that has run dry. It is a political decision by the White House to use people who are going to be without food, old people, children, as political pawns, and to force a question of do people go hungry or people go without health care.
When you say the White House,
Yes.
what about Democrats? What pressure do you think this puts on elected Democrats like Chuck Schumer, you know, the senator?
Oh, there's no question it puts pressure on everyone, as it should, because it's a horrible situation. But let's not forget, it's the Republicans who have said set up. People can go hungry, but people can be without health care. Neither of those things actually has to happen, and people should get in a room and figure it out.
But by the way, prediction here, there is a move among Senate Republicans and a certain number of House Republicans, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, to vote to reopen the government for a short-term extension of Obamacare subsidies. That's the way this is passed next, because to your point, it should not be a choice between healthcare premiums skyrocketing and your ability to eat.
Well, we will see. We will see if the next few days bear any fruit. We'll also see how much suffering there is here because people are being caught in the middle. We're seeing all this very great to see Willie in person.
Yes.
Sarah.
Right now, Hurricane Melissa is a Category 2 hurricane again after tearing through Jamaica as one of the worst storms ever on record.
The conditions here in Angeles let us just somewhat fear, so we are unable to rescue, we are unable to respond.
Authorities recovered at least 4 bodies so far in St. Elizabeth Parish, one of the worst hit areas. Homes and businesses destroyed, and as you see there, it's hard to get into places. Roads are blocked by debris. Our Derek Van Dam is there on the left.
Widespread devastation after the deadly Category 5 Hurricane Melissa, one of the strongest Atlantic hurricanes on record, went through Jamaica Tuesday, leaving behind a path of destruction, most of the island without power. On the ground, you see muddy mess as people come out to survey the damage for the first time, crumbling infrastructure. Flooded roads, downed trees, causing major disruption and making getting aid to those most in need a very difficult task. We are literally on the front lines of the Jamaica Defense Force, ambulances, local NGOs, police, volunteers trying to clear the roadway leading into Black River, some of the, we believe, is the hardest hit areas from Hurricane Melissa. It's a monumental effort to try and get aid through to this area, including medical provisions. We've seen ambulances and people coming together to push those ambulances through debris and thick mud. This effort trying to get aid and people and the help that is desperately needed into portions of western Jamaica. People banded together. Some did whatever they could to survive.
I had to climb over a house, a wall, just to get shelter in another person's home, just so that I didn't drown to death.